Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk in Edinburgh, in Scotland, in the glorious United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, in Europe at the moment, in the world, and in the solar system, etc., etc. There you go. Yes, technical problems I am having an abundance of, but part of the issue is, I think I mentioned this a couple of streams ago, that for some reason my CPU is running very hot, which it is. It's currently 79 degrees centigrade at the moment, which I think is pretty hot. It's only been doing this maybe the last, I don't know. It's not doing it every stream, but it's doing it. And I moved Chrome off of my machine and onto my laptop because I thought Chrome was the culprit, and it isn't. So it has nothing to do with YouTube. It has nothing to do with Chrome. The only culprit I can now think of is it is to do with OBS, and OBS is hammering my CPU and making it get a little bit on the hot side. But for now, we are working. And so that's kind of the issue. And so I am entirely blaming Boris Johnson for this. It's entirely his fault. So there. But yeah, so it's running a little bit hot, and I don't like that at all. So it's going to make streaming a little bit tricky, a little bit difficult. I don't know how exactly I'm going to solve that problem. It could well be that the machine is just a little on the a little bit on the old side. I mean, it's a 2014 machine. It's designed for audio. It's not really designed for live streaming, and it's not really designed for processing video either. But I do both on this machine, so it's probably getting hammered every week, and probably, hammered every time I upload a video. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just got old. I don't know. David says, when's the last time you cleaned out the inside of the computer? Could be a duct clog in the CPU cooler. Oh, that's a good thought. Am I running Splice? No, I don't have Splice. Take the case off. That would require me to go under my desk and get screws and a screwdriver and that kind of stuff, which I don't want to do. Have I cleaned the filter screens? I think I have. Hold on a minute. I've opened up the front, and I've taken this guy out. It is a tiny bit dusty, but it has been cleaned. It was cleaned maybe a week ago. But yeah, that is possible. Dust bunnies collect quickly. Yeah, maybe I need to get one of my tech guys round to... Oh, and look at that. The temperature, just opening up that, the temperature is dropping a little bit. It's now down to 72. But the fan is running pretty fast. But yeah. I think you might be onto something there, folks. It could just be there's a lot of dust inside the machine and it's making it heat faster than normal. Let's see. So you can probably now hear the sound of the fans, which you ordinarily don't get to hear because I've normally got it all closed off. So I don't know. And I know nothing about CPU paste. The only paste I know about is toothpaste. It just needs some fresh air. Yeah, I suppose when it's sat at my feet, all it gets is like the smell of my feet all the time. So that's probably not helping anybody at all. But yeah, I've opened the front door and I've taken this off for now. And maybe kind of until I can get this cleaned, maybe that's what I need to do when I'm streaming, is just open the front door and take this off. And maybe that will help, because the temperature has dropped down now. It's 71, so it's only going to go down when I'm doing this, I guess. But I don't really know a whole lot about computers. I only know about making music and using DAWs. I don't really know that much about computers. But anyway, that's not really what we were going to do the show about. But there we go. It's dropped down to 70 degrees. So just opening up the front like that has helped immensely already, folks. So thank you very much for your help there. Actually, I can even show you what I'm looking at. No, that's the wrong button. There we go. That's what I wanted to show you. So this is what I'm looking at the moment. And this was, at the very start of the show, this was like 78, 79 degrees. But now I've got the door open and that dust collector thing off the front. The temperature's dropped right down. So it was giving me an amber warning. But now we don't have any warnings, which is very cool. Martin says it's the socks doing it. I'm not actually wearing any socks. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe my computer is just inhaling foot odor and it doesn't like it. Just Bob says, do I have a fan for the computer? Well, it has its own fan. Outside the internal fan. Oh, you mean just like a normal fan? Oh, the temperature's gone back up again. You mean like just a normal fan? No, I don't, but maybe that's not a bad idea. But yeah, as you can see, guys, the temperature's going back up again. It had dropped down to 70 with the door open, but now it's back up again to 74. So I don't know that streaming is going to be something that I can do anymore, to be honest, if it's going to be like this. I'm not entirely sure that this is a good thing for the computer to be doing this. Kyle says computer tech since 1981. Well, that's awesome, mate, because you're right in at the door. Let's see. PM Barrett says, hey, how was the gig last weekend? The gig was awesome. It went very, very well, actually. That check program takes a lot of CPU, I found out, so I uninstalled it again. Oh, really? Okay. 4 cores, 8 gigs of RAM. It's time for an upgrade. Yes, it is definitely time for a RAM upgrade. I don't think I can afford a CPU upgrade. It's an i5 quad core. And yes, we've got 8 gigs of RAM. I could definitely do with some more RAM for sure. But yeah, I think maybe the computer is underpowered for what I'm demanding of it these days with streaming and everything else. But yeah, I otherwise don't really know anything else about computers. Bob Studio says social media platform is reported to be running slowly in many places across the UK, and some people reporting they cannot post links. Okay, well, I've not had any trouble posting links today, anyway, that's for sure. I've posted several links to this show, in fact. about 2 hours ago. So maybe the issue has occurred since then. Come on, computer, cool down, will you? Talking to it nicely isn't working either. An extra fan to cool processors and stuff. Internal is the lowest, most economical fan. To do what you do, you need more airflow to cool. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Get just like a little portable fan is not a bad idea, and just park it in front of the computer, especially when I'm streaming, is probably not a bad idea. Okay, I will take you on that. Damien says, whatever it is, I hope you can get it resolved without spending much money. Yes, I don't have much money to spend, actually. Martin says, Pop Studios, that might be a culprit too, as a friend in the UK could not listen to the link I sent him. Okay. Alright, sorry folks, this is not entirely how I planned this show to go at all. And you guys are just staring at my screen, which is probably not great to be looking at, but yeah. I need to talk to my friend Mark when he gets back from America, which is where he's from originally, but he lives literally like a street away from me. And he's from Pittsburgh originally. He's awesome. So I need to talk to him about this computer and see what we can kind of do to speed it up and to make it work a bit more efficiently. Martin says, get an additional fan to blow into it. Yeah, I think that's probably not a bad idea. Temperature is like 74 degrees. And you guys are probably all correct on airflow and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think I'm probably also demanding more of my machine than I have ever done since I got it. Because really, when I started, I hadn't really thought about the fact that, or rather when I got this computer, I hadn't really thought about the fact that I might actually be making tutorial videos. I hadn't really thought about the fact that I might be doing live streams. None of that really ever occurred to me. None of that was really in my plan. My plan was that I was just going to mix and record and work with clients. And I didn't really, none of what we're doing here ever occurred to me. So there you go. Let's see. Martin says, are you familiar with Roland Cloud? No, but I do know that Roland are making some of their synth sounds and some of their classic keyboard sounds available for download and that kind of thing, which is cool. If you want to get Roland D20 and Roland D50 and Roland D5 sounds and even more contemporary keyboard sounds, then yes, you can probably go get them from that. But yeah. Do I run C Cleaner on my computer? Yes, I do. I have it right here. Again, you can't see. Yes, I have C Cleaner here, and it does get run every day. Let's see what we're doing now. 73. So yeah, I do run C Cleaner, and I run Windows Defender and Avast. So I run those three kind of in conjunction with each other. And Avast doesn't normally give me a problem. Can I post the link here? Asked Martin. No, I've not got it set up for posting links in the chat. Only me or moderators can post links. And I've done that deliberately because early in my streaming days, people would post links to all sorts of really dodgy stuff. And so that was a reaction to that I basically went, right, okay, no links. Not happening unless I approve them. So there you go. And that's why you buy 2 accordions instead of 1. Plan for the future. That's funny. Chris, that's hilarious, mate. That is very, very funny. Okay. Shall we get on with the show? I think we probably should. And we'll trust that the computer is going to be okay with me doing that. Because it's now 12:20, and all we've done is talk about my computer not working properly. So I think we should try and do something a bit more Jonny Lipsham Studios Sunday Night Live orientated. Last stream was great and went really, really well, and I really enjoyed it, and it's got a lot of reviews, and a lot of people have sent me very nice emails telling me how cool it was, and it certainly was, and my computer behaved itself marvelously last week, so I'm just a bit annoyed, really, that it's deciding not to behave itself tonight. But yeah. So, let's get to it. Toby Phillips, I nearly called you Tony there. Malware bites and spybot search and destroy and hijack this. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about there. I've heard of malware bites. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Wow, how loud is that fan? Yep, it's pretty loud. Actually, there's lots of fans going on in here because my laptop here has a fan. And my old Yamaha QS300 synth here doesn't have a fan, but it has a disk drive that doesn't work anymore that you can hear spinning. Okay, we have a question. Let's see. Kyle says, gain staging. Does negative infinity fader / pre-fader meter show something different from unity gain / non-free pre-fader metering, assuming no plugins? I don't think it does. I don't think it shows anything different at all. All it does show you, it just enables you to be able to gain stage. The video that I did, basically, I'm showing you how you can gain stage without having to listen to the music and be able to gain stage really, really quickly. And Chris actually had a great question on the thread in one of the groups, and that's my phone. Chris Howard from Deer Creek Audio had a great question, which I answered in the thread there. So go check the thread out if you're in the Persona Studio One group, because he asked a really good question about why gain stage when in the digital domain there is a noise floor, but the noise floor is so low it's hardly really worth thinking about. It's not worth bothering about. So why do we gain stage? Because it's not really necessary in the digital domain because there's no noise floor. And the whole point of gain staging in the analog domain was to combat the noise floor. Now that's all done. There is no noise floor, effectively. Why do we still gain stage? Well, see, I don't really, although I've called it gain staging, I've called it gain staging and referred to it as gain staging in the video because I think that's a term that everybody gets and everybody understands, or the majority of people are going to get, and the majority of people are going to understand. They're going to understand what that refers to. So when I'm talking about gain staging, I'm talking about leveling everything off so that everything has the same starting point when I start mixing. So I'm leveling off all the gain on every input, so every channel in the mix, however many channels there are, I level off at a specific point so that everything is peaking at the same point. And for me, I do that not because I'm trying to deal with a noise floor, but I'm actually trying to keep myself as far away from getting close to 0 dB as I can when I'm mixing. So not only do I gain stage conservatively, but then I mix conservatively in terms of volume. And to be honest, I've been doing this for so long that I don't think I've ever clipped, ever, in Studio One. The clip light just never ever comes on for me. And I really just don't even think about it anymore. And the reason why I don't think about it anymore is because the process that I do, where I am leveling everything off so that everything is peaking at minus 12 dB, or if the session is particularly large, I might drop that down to minus 18. The reason why I do that is so that I buy myself some headroom, so that as I'm going through the mix and as I'm EQing and as I'm compressing, all of those things increase gain. They add gain. It's just the way it is. You know, you boost something in EQ, it adds some gain. You cut from EQ, it takes away some gain. You compress, that's going to add a little bit as well. You do some sends to reverbs and delays and that kind of thing. That's going to add some gain as well. You maybe bus process, that's going to add some gain as well. Everything cumulatively add up until your mix bus, it gets closer and closer and closer to 0 dB. Now, for some people, they want to finish their mix so that the mix is as close to 0 dB as they can get without clipping. I don't do that. My target, if I have a target, I don't really, but you know, my theoretical target is that I want to arrive at about minus 6 dB on my mix bus before I send it off for mastering. So mix is all finished, I'm happy with it, client is happy with it, I'm aiming for minus 6 dB. And the reason why I aim for minus 6 dB, not because I'm trying to give the mastering engineer some headspace. That's kind of part of it. Part of it is that I'm wanting to give them some headroom. Although, again, in the digital domain, that's less of an issue. But, so part of it is I'm wanting to give them some headroom. But the other part of it is also that I want to make sure that I have that space for if I need it. I never do, but I like to have that space available so that I'm not having to think about dancing with the clip light. So I hope you guys are understanding that. Let's see. Deer Creek says, speaking of meters, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to have pre and post fader meters at the same time? Yes, it would, but it might get A, confusing, and B, you're going to clutter up the GUI, I think, if you've got 2 meters going on at the same time. Per channel, and you have maybe 80 channels of audio, 90 channels, 120 channels, that might get a little bit cluttered, and then real estate becomes an issue, and then you're looking at 2 meters, and it can get a little bit, I think it could get a little bit busy on the eye doing that way. Mika says you can set the mixer meters for post, add a meter plugin in the first inset for pre. Yes, so I suppose you could. If you've got a meter plugin that will do that for you, you can probably do both at the same time doing it that way. Lyle Gallant is here. Hey, Lyle. He says, is minus 12 dB the sweet spot? No, it's just an arbitrary number that I picked. If there is a sweet spot, most digital plugins, like the native Studio One plugins, they're not emulating or modeled after analog gear. So they don't really have a sweet spot. That's kind of irrelevant. But for plugins that are specifically modeled after hardware units like an LA2A or an 1176 or a Pi compressor or anything that's hardware and it's emulating hardware like an SSL console, for example, or whatever it might be, those tend to have a minus 18 dB sweet spot. And that's because the gear has that. So they've modeled that. So you kind of want, it's like, you know, the Mix Effects engine in Studio One. When that first came out, a lot of people were just like, oh, great, I can just slap a console on at the end of the mix. I can do my mix and slap it on. And then they wonder why the mix just sounds awful. It destroys the mix. And they go, Mix Effects engine doesn't work. It's crap. It's rubbish. No, you're just not doing it right. You have to think. If you're using the Mix Effects engine, you have to think about, you have to imagine and get in your mindset that you're mixing on an analog console. So you're going to get noise, you're going to get the crosstalk, you're going to get all of that because that's what a console does. It does all of those things. And that's what the Mix FX engine is designed to do. It's designed to replace the regular Studio One audio engine, and you mix through the Mix FX engine. So really, you start with the Mix FX engine first. So you start with your Mix FX plugins, be that the Console Shaper or the CTC1. You start with that and you mix through that first. And in the same way, the analog style plugins that are available, third party or in the Fat channel, they're all modeled after analog gear. So they've got their -18 dB sweet spot. So that's what that's all about. That's what that refers to. But my -12 number that I use for gain staging is just an arbitrary number that's actually reasonably low. I mean, pick whichever one you want. If you want to gain stage at -14, do it to -14. If you want to do it to -20, do it to -20. Generally speaking, the fewer channels I have in the mix, the smaller that number is. So if I have like 5 or 6 channels in the mix, then I might just do it to -6. But the more channels I have, the more I'm gonna lower that number, because I have to keep in mind the cumulative effect. So I hope that answers that question. Let's see. There's lots of chat going on here, which is awesome. Mika says, refast gain staging. Studio One's normalizes non-destructive. Why not use a macro that normalizes and then reduces peaks to -12 or whatever you want? I made 3, 1 for each, -18, -12, -8. There is one that is set for -12 already in the Studio One macro toolbar. I can show you that. Which I have used, but I don't necessarily always like it. Let's see. It's in the... Is it music editing? No. Is it? I know where it is. It's audio editing. It's in the audio editing toolbar. And it's this one here. Normalize and peaks -12. So you can use this one. You can select all of your events and hit this guy. And in one instant, it sets everything to -12. Yes, you can do it like that. I just don't necessarily always like the results and find that I have to sometimes go in and correct some of the events. For some reason, this guy is not foolproof, especially if you've got lots of channels. It's not entirely foolproof, but it is a great option if you just want to get your gain staging done instantly. Use that button. I prefer to do it manually, because if I do it manually, then I know I have done it and I'm responsible for it, and I'm responsible for any mistakes that there are. Whereas if I press a button, I'm relying upon a computer to do it all, and I'm relying upon technology, and it means that I can quite often just get lazy, and I'm not one to promote laziness. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that put a lot of feature requests in the Studio One feature requests forum at answers.presonus.com, and a lot of them, I'm just like, you know what? You just want Studio One to do it all for you. You just want to be able to click one button and about 8 different things happen in one. The problem with something that does 8 different things in one is that you are not in control of it. All you're in control of is clicking that one button, and those 8 other processes are done by the computer, or they're done by the macro, the arguments and the strings in the macro that make that work. So then it's down to, is the macro foolproof? If the macro's foolproof, use it. But macros are programmed by people as well. So, you have... My thing is, if I'm going to have one button that does 8 things, I'm going to want to make sure that those 8 things have happened. So I'm going to want to go and check it. Well, what's the point? That means I'm pressing a button, then I'm going to check that those 8 things have happened and have happened correctly. So that the whole process isn't messed up. So that's why I'm not necessarily, I mean, I use macros, but I don't use all of them, and I don't use macros all the time either. I use some, but I don't use all. And that's the reason why I don't. So I hope you understand that. Let's see. Carl says, once I have items on a bus bounce with each other, I may level the bus off before added plugins there. Yeah, good. Deer Creek says, would you gain stage with wide dynamic range in orchestral music? Example, if you had a quiet bassoon in the beginning, would you crank that track up? That's a great question. I don't very often mix orchestral music, so in fact, I very, very rarely mix orchestral music, so I'm not really an authority on how to do that and how to appropriately gain stage for something as big as an orchestra. Because yes, you're right, orchestral works, particularly post-romantic, romantic period and post-romantic period works tend to have a massive dynamic range. They'll go from Pia pianissimo, 5 Ps, all the way up to forte, 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 fortissimo, 5 Fs. So, you know, the dynamic range is massive. So I guess, I don't know for certain, but I would imagine you'd probably have to find some kind of middle ground somewhere between the quietest and the loudest that you see in the audio and pick that. I don't know. Good question, though. Great question. Damien says, so you're saying that gain staging is not totally necessary in the box all the time? No, it is not. It is not totally necessary, but I'll tell you this. By doing it the way I do it, or something similar, you will find that it makes your mix go faster. You get to what you want faster, in my opinion. Is it necessary? No, because there's no noise floor. So, or practically no noise floor. The noise floor is something like minus 144 dB in the digital domain. So there's practically no noise floor. So for practical purposes, it is not necessary. You don't need to do it. In the analog domain, on analog consoles with analog gear, in an entirely enclosed analog world, yes, it is necessary because of noise. We don't have that now. So, no, it is not necessary, but it can be useful. It can be helpful to appropriate analog techniques and apply them to the digital domain in a way that is useful and in a way that is helpful. Am I strictly gain staging the way you would in the analog domain? No. It's kind of a variation on the theme, effectively. But it's the way I have arrived at. And certainly now with the new stuff that is in Studio One 4.5, it's better. It's faster. Sorry, you're looking at Studio One, and probably that's not very polite. Now you're looking at me. And that was my phone. Yeah, that was my phone again, doing a cockerel sound, which means somebody is trying to WhatsApp me. WhatsApp is fun. Let's see. Always got to have a starting point, says Bobby Booth. Yes, I agree. And I'm going to hit that button there and see what comes up. What is your Ken says, what is your master fader set to? It is set to one of the K scales. I can't remember which one. It's set to K20. There you go. Set to K20, and it's set to pre-fader. I don't know why it's set to pre-fader. But yeah, it's set to K20. That's what I use for mixing, and I use K14 for mastering, generally speaking. Again, it's just a headroom thing. It's nothing crazy, nothing special, nothing, to do with analog domain versus digital domain. The K system is all about preserving your dynamics and headroom and all of that. Let's see. Um, Martin says, like you already said, so many things affect the cumulative gain that thinking there's one button perfection just out there's not realistic. Well, to be honest, I mean, some people find it works for them. I'm just not one of those people. Dear Creek Audio asks, interfaces and mics are now the weak point in the noise floor or the room. The room is probably the first weak point. To be honest, treat your room, place your mic in the correct location, have the right person in front of the microphone, who is well prepared and well rehearsed. Good mic, good quality mic. Doesn't have to be heinously expensive. Good quality, low noise cabling. Clean and clear inputs into your interface. Good quality converters. And then a reasonably powered computer that will handle everything. So you can have a weak point at any of those. As demonstrated tonight, with the start of this show, my computer is probably underpowered for what I'm trying to make it do. Speaking of which, let's see what's going on here. It's holding steady at about 74. I'm not going to worry too much about it until it goes, up to 80 and beyond. But yes, I would say the room is probably the weakest weak point, because especially with home studios, because a room like this one, this is a bedroom. It's not designed to be a recording or a mixing environment, so you have to make it into one. And yes, you will find that there are some issues you just can't get past, because it's the way the room is made, the way the room is designed, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, for example, there is a mirror in the corner of this room, which is part of this wardrobe. I can't do anything about that. Mirror, incredibly reflective surface. Nothing I can do about that. Apart from maybe get something like a theatre curtain and a rail and put that all the way along the front there. That might help. But certainly managing the low ends in the room, managing the low mids in the room, and dealing with standing waves, flutter echo, those kind of things, those are the most important things you can deal with in your room. Carl says we're not hearing the fans or the phone. Well, that's good to know. That means that my expander that I've got on here is working. Bobby says I gain stage no matter what. What is Paul Lucas is here. Hey Paul, good to see you. What is the optimal headroom to set the master? I usually shoot for -6. Well, as you may well have been able to see in Studio One here, my master fader sits at 0 dB and pretty much never moves. I pretty much never ever move this. I occasionally do, like if I'm automating a fade out or something, or a fade in or something like that, then this guy gets to move, but for the most part it doesn't. If I click off, you might be able to see it a bit better. But yeah, this sits at 0 dB, but I watch the metering here, and I pay attention to these numbers here, because these numbers are going to tell me what my true peak values are. And then this is going to be showing me what my K system coloring is. And generally speaking, if by the end of my mix it's, in the yellow area, kind of green, but then occasionally popping up into the yellow area on the meters, then I know that that this is going to work. This is going to be in the ballpark for around about that -6 kind of area, as I referred to earlier. But yeah, so I keep an eye on these kind of things. And that's so I shoot for much the same thing. Deer Creek says, I was saying ambient noise in the room is probably as bad as a cheap interface. Yes, probably. Damien says, got it! Thanks for answering a question that I have had for a while about gain staging. I think I've always done it without really knowing the specifics in the past. Well, I'm very, very glad that that has helped you. Very glad that that has helped you. That is fantastic. If my videos and my live streams help but one person, it is worth me doing them, even if it kills my computer. Let's see. Ken says, another benefit of gain staging is getting a mixed level with the track fader as close to zero as possible. Better resolution on the fader in that range. Yes, absolutely right. Deer Creek says, that mirror looks like a bass guitar. Well, there is a bass guitar sitting there. A 1962 Fender Jazz bass. Fretless. Paul says, there are loads of great songs recorded in non-optimal conditions. That is absolutely right. There are lots of great songs that are recorded in non-optimal environments. Because the first and foremost, most important thing before you even hit record is the song. If the song is no good, it doesn't matter what gear you put in front of it to capture it. If the song is crud, even if you're singing in front of a $25,000 microphone going into a solid gold 24 karat solid gold plate leaf interface that is worth $15,000, going into the most expensive converters in the world, going into a totally overspec'd computer, doesn't matter. You could spend $50, $60, $70, $100,000 on studio gear, but if the song sucks, there's nothing you can do about it, apart from screw up the song, chuck it away, and start again. So, my good friend Joe Gilder talks a lot about getting it right at the source. And I think the source starts before you even park anything in front of a microphone. The source starts with the idea. And then you grow the idea from there. It may well be that you start off with a great idea. The bare bones of the song is really good, but the way you've gone in the direction you've gone with the production sucks. Strip all of that crap away, get back to the bare bones, and start again with the production. Because if you know the bare bones, the song itself is good, then you can strip off all of the production, get back to the raw song, and start to build it up again until you get it right. Once you've got it right and the song is great and you've got a great singer who performs it well and you've got good, really, really good musicians who really play their hearts out and you capture all of that, then it doesn't matter what gear you record it into. It really doesn't. One of my friends, who is a terrific singer-songwriter, I have worked with him for a number of years. He's fantastic. He does his demos before he comes into my studio. He does his demos using Mixcraft on an iPad with a little PreSonus AudioBox 96, which is the updated version of the AudioBox USB. He uses that into his iPad using Mixcraft, and he does his demos that way, and then he sends me the audio files out of Mixcraft, and I bring them into Studio One, and half the time I go, that guitar sounds awesome. His vocals sound fantastic. The song is inspiring. And usually what he calls a demo scratch vocal is the vocal we use in the final production. And his scratched acoustic guitar is the central rhythm guitar that goes all the way through the song. You know, he thinks, oh, those are scratch things. We'll replace those with the real thing in the studio. And half the time we don't. Half the time we just build everything around those scratch tracks. And, you know, we churn out something really, really great. And it's because he is good at his craft that makes the difference. So I agree wholeheartedly. Mika says, and 8 times of... Oh, yeah, that jumped. That jumped because somebody added a comment at the bottom there. 8 out of 10 times it's max normalized to 0, then 18, minus 18, minus 12, or minus 8. So starting point. Each and every track needs tender loving care. Absolutely. Martin says, another factor to remember is the codec of whatever streaming platform you're working with will also alter the mix levels. So again, gain staging is important. Perceived loudness issues. Yeah, those are important if you're streaming. Having the right output to the streaming service is very, very important. Because you don't want them turning down your music like crazy. So, not having a master that is so ridiculously loud and compressed that when Spotify get hold of it, they just go, slam! We'll slam it down even further. We'll slam it by 6 dB to get it to conform to their loudness normalization. And what little dynamics you had allowed yourself, you have been robbed of immediately. So making sure you've got that right is very, very important. And my good friend Ian Shepherd, who is an award-winning mastering engineer, and he runs a fantastic website called productionadvice.co.uk. Go and check that out. He has a number of plugins which are extremely useful. He has the Dynameter. He has another one that... the Perception plugin, and they're great for helping you get the whole loudness thing right and the dynamic range aspect of your music right. Those are great plugins for doing that. But I think about 1.5 years ago, he launched a website called loudnesspenalty.com, which is great because that shows you what your music is going to sound like on the major streaming platforms according to their normalization, their loudness normalization algorithms. And it also shows you how much they're going to turn your music down by. So how much of your dynamic range you're going to get robbed by. So that is really good. But I think in just a few months ago, he launched a plugin version of it. So you can sit that on your mix bus, and you can just constantly have it have your mixes or your masters passing through the loudness penalty plugin, and you can make sure that you get it into the right ballpark. So those are a great thing to go and check out. Deer Creek says, do you think Abbey Road is exceptionally acoustically treated when you have such large rooms and are close miking? More talent than anything coming out of there. Well, I've actually been in Abbey Road Studios many times, either as a performer or as an assistant. I've been there. And I've recorded in those rooms, in those massive, great big live rooms. Those massive, great big live rooms are acoustically treated. And they employ acousticians who come in and they do very, very specific treatments to achieve a very specific sound in that particular room when they are recording. And they'll use baffling as well. So when Abbey Road is being used for score recording, which is when I have been there, when I lived in London, one of the things I did was I performed on a lot of film scores. And so there would be baffling between each of the sections of the orchestra. And so you would get the room ambience, which is carefully controlled room ambience. It's not just the bare bones walls. It's carefully controlled room ambience. Plus, you've got the baffling, which separates each of the sections of the orchestra out. And everything is recorded live. Everything just goes down in one take. So if you are one of the percussionists, like I have been a few times, and you just misread 2 notes in bar 57 of a particular cue, and you're the only one that's made that mistake, You either have to wait behind at the end of the scoring session to go and do your overdubs, or the whole orchestra just does it again, and everybody glares at you. So, those recording rooms are controlled environments. They use diffusion, they use some paneling as well, some absorption, to control how their large recording rooms sound. So when you talk about the Abbey Road sound on the Beatles record Abbey Road, what you're getting there is you're getting the complete Abbey Road sound. So you're getting the sound from recording in the room, to the mics that they used, to the TG consoles that they used, or various other consoles that they used when mixing as well. And of course their tape machines, the J37 amongst others. It is exceptionally acoustically treated. Some rooms have less stuff on the walls than others, but they all have something on the walls to control how each room sounds. So Studio A will sound different to Studio B, and so on and so forth. I'm going to press this button here and go back down the chat again. Martin says, Mixcraft ain't a bad DAW at all. I just like the sound engine in Studio One better. Started out using Mixcraft. Yeah, I've not really done anything with it, to be honest. Martin says, if it's not loud enough, Spotify's limiter will make it too loud, and that can foobar your whole mix. Actually, it won't make it too loud, because it has a normalization standard applied to it. So it won't make it too loud. It's not like, hey, your mix is coming in at minus 16 dB. Okay, we need to jack it up 50 dB. No, it doesn't do that. Everything conforms to a particular normalization standard, which for the most part is going to be minus 23 or minus 24. Depends which codec they're following, or minus 14 LUFS. So it might be minus 23 dB, or it might be minus 14 LUFS. Most of them work in loudness units, I think. So yeah, it'd be most of them work with minus 14 LUFS. So although some of them I think work at minus 13. I think Spotify is one of those that works at minus 13. I don't know for certain. I'd have to check with Ian about that. Because he knows what all the normalization standards are for this, for most of the platforms. The reason why he does is because he has worked with a lot of them on developing loudness management. So it's not gonna do that. But if your mix is really, really quiet and they do need to turn it up, they will, it will get turned up, but that won't necessarily foobar your mix. All it'll do is just turn it up. Now, in turning it up, it might expose some weaknesses in your mix, like perhaps because your mix is so quiet, you're used to it being very, very quiet, so you're used to not really hearing what the low end sounds like and what the top end sounds like. And then when your mix gets turned up by 10 dB, suddenly there's all this sibilance and harshness and brittleness at the top, and then the low end is just too much. That can certainly happen to you. One of the drawbacks of mixing at a conservative volume is that you get used to what a conservative volume sounds like, and it doesn't necessarily help you get what it's going to sound like at a normal quote, air quote marks, at a normal playback volume at the consumer level, which is why it's always good to check what it sounds like at that level. So set your monitoring up so that you can do that. You can easily switch between your conservative mixing volume and the the consumer level volume. That's what I do. I'll set my monitoring system up so that I can easily just press one button and my whole mix opens up in volume to what it would sound like at a commercial level. And that's usually when I find out that, okay, I've maybe not finished with the top end and I'm maybe not finished with the low mids. And I just need to go back and dive in and go and find those issues and deal with them. So, but it's not really going to foobar your mix. Ken says, I have the loudest penalty plugin, very nice and worth the small price. Absolutely. Let's see. Mika says, back in the day we had playlists that didn't need loudness normalization to sound good. They were called albums. Yeah, but those albums were mastered so that each of the tracks on that album had the same output level. So you didn't have to keep on turning it up, turning it down. Turn down for song 3, turn up for song 4, turn down for song 5, turn up for song 6 or whatever. They were mastered so that they're at the same level. So you just have it at your preferred volume and walk away from the stereo player and either sit and enjoy or kind of go and do domestic chores whilst you're listening to the music. But otherwise, I agree. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, so this show really didn't go as I planned tonight. I'm really sorry about that because I did actually have a plan and it instantly fell apart the moment I started the stream because my crazy CPU was running hot. It has been on all day and hasn't had a restart, so that might well be part of it. It might just have got a little bit hot because it is actually quite warm in the room and it has been on since about 6 o'clock this morning. So it has been on for like 21 hours, so that might be part of it. And it is quite elderly. So there is always that. On that note, folks, I'm sorry that my show has not gone according to plan. But stay tuned to my channel this week because more videos are coming out. I've got quite a list of some new videos that are going to come out. I am on school holidays with my kids at the moment, so I'm aiming to have videos coming out on Thursdays. But sometimes I don't always get the chance to get them out on Thursdays, so it'll be a Friday or a Saturday maybe. Like this week's video came out on Saturday. But I'm going to try very, very hard to get them out on Thursdays over the course of the next 10, 12, 13 weeks. So I've got quite a list of videos that I want to get out. So stay tuned for those. If you enjoyed the gain staging video, there are more short little 5, 6, 7 minute videos that are coming your way. And of course, we'll be back here next Sunday for another show, which will be awesome, and hopefully I'll have the computer at least behaving better by then. But thanks very much for coming, everybody. And yes, I'm gonna get to cleaning this fan because I think that might be part of it. And I'll see if I can take the sides off and see if there's any other dust and crap inside the machine that I can get rid of. But thank you very much. Damien says, great show. It's my first live with you, and I enjoyed it. Well, Damien, thank you very much. I really appreciate that a lot, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Most of the time, if you go back through my back catalogue of shows over the last couple of years, you'll find that they usually have a plan for the most part, and we usually have something that we talk about or something that I show. But actually, this whole gain staging thing sparked off a fantastic discussion. And you guys were contributing very, very heavily in the chat. So I appreciate all of your contributions and great questions. And on that note, folks, I'm going to bid you all a very, very fond farewell. And I'm not going to do that just yet. I nearly pressed the wrong button. And I will see you this week on another video, and I will see you on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified over on the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel, and we'll be back here next week. So until then, folks, good night.